This is a presentation of the Sports Source Digital Network, presented by Hearthside Bank.
Welcome into the Sports Source Digital Network alongside VFL Ollie Lane. I'm Ryan Callahan of GoVols247.com. We're going to talk about Tennessee's offensive line, Ollie, an area you should be know a few things about.
No.
Yeah. Obviously, about a week into preseason camp, still a lot to figure out about this offensive line, exactly how it's going to look, especially with 4 new starters and some jobs up for grabs. We're going to do our best to tackle the depth chart, where we think things stand as of right now, how things may end up looking, and what we think of this group overall. There are some things we do know about this group right now, and we'll start with sort of the obvious as we lay out the depth chart. Left tackle seems pretty solidified with Lance Hurd there. We spoke with Glenn Ellerby on Tuesday, and he had some good things to say about Lance Hurd in the offseason he's had. We can see the difference. He looks like he's slimmed down a bit, gotten in better shape, and look, moving more like the guy we thought he was when he came from LSU. What do we think about Lance Hurd right now and sort of what his outlook might be after fans clearly had a lot of concerns coming out last season?
Yeah, from what I've seen and what I've heard, it sounds like he's really kind of taken that jump up into what he needs to be. Obviously, I think he dealt with some injury issues last year, which kind of held him back from reaching that full potential. But, I mean, I've seen it in practice. I hear it in the talks. I mean, guys out achieving right now. He's having a good start to his camp, and he's really kind of putting himself at the forefront. We talked about it a lot during the spring. He needs, being the only guy that's had that full really year in the system, he needs to really step up and be that leader for that offensive line. And it seems like something that he's been doing. I've seen it in the way he interacts with the guys at practice and stuff like that. Because, I mean, he's going to have to be the driving force for this offensive line. He's the senior leadership. And guys are going to look to him for advice, especially as it gets later in the season. You start looking for those guys that have played against those teams to kind of get some more insight, things that you may not know yet because you just haven't experienced it.
Now, left guard is another position I think we have a pretty good idea. It's probably going to be Wendell Jr., the Arizona transfer. He's gotten pretty much all the first-team reps there, what we've seen so far. Now, he did mention this week that he's still getting some work at right guard, and some of that may be, you can speak to this, you're probably just cross-training guys a little bit to make sure you've got different scenarios covered and things like that. And one thing we'll touch on in a minute, the depth of this offensive line, you might need to sort of work on some contingency plans involving moving guys around to get your best 5 on the field because you're not 10 or 12 deep with guys that you maybe trust right now. But Wendell Jr., and then we'll throw into this conversation because he's the other guy that we know right now. David Sanders Jr., the 5-star freshman, looks like he's going to for sure be the starting right tackle. Those two guys, your thoughts on them so far, and how do we feel about them, I guess, knowing that they're kind of locked into starting jobs most likely?
Yeah, I mean, just to start off first off the bat, David Sanders, I mean, looks the part. I don't know what he did over the offseason, but, I mean, even gained more of that SEC offensive lineman body type. Dude looks great. Obviously, he's going to need to figure things out as he gets into actual game-type scenarios. There's just some stuff that you can't replicate in the practice that he's going to need to see, and he'll get that in the early games and early experience. With Wendell I mean, just a guy that's come in, really kind of proved himself from coming from a place where he's already had to prove himself once, having to do it again. That's already a struggle in itself, but he's done a really good job. And his body type reminds me a lot of what Javonte Spraggins was. That short, little, stocky guy that's going to go in there and do some work, and that's what we need in that interior. Those are your big, heavy hitter kind of guys, and he seems like the guy that's going to be able to do that. Talking about them switching him back from right to left, that's a good thing. That's what they need. Ellerby's always had the great philosophy that I'm going to put the best 5 out there, no matter what position it is. The best 5 is going to be out there. So I mean, if he's training at these other ones, it's, God forbid something happens, something goes wrong throughout the season, having that ability to transfer over quicker versus having to take a whole week or so to learn that throughout the season helps out a ton.
Now, we'll shift to what I think was one of the most surprising things we saw on day 1 of camp, not so much in who it was, but how quickly it was laid out this way. Jesse Perry, the redshirt freshman, has been getting the first-team snaps primarily at right guard over Sam Pendleton, who's now been working at center primarily, and over Sham Umarov, another guy who's had a pretty good offseason, I think. But Perry's a guy that we talked about him in the spring. Pretty consistently, you've been hearing his name as a guy who's really come on, and you can see the difference. We spoke with him again this week. He said he's up to 320 pounds. This is a guy that I covered him in high school at Middle Tennessee Christian. He was somewhere around 270, and he's up 50 pounds, and now looks like he's a lean tackle, and now he's a guy who's likely going to start at guard, it looks like, in the SEC as a redshirt freshman. how surprised should we be by his progression into being potentially a starter on this offensive line?
I mean, his change just physically wise is almost shocking. I mean, I remember coming in, I was a lighter guy, getting recruited. I was at about 275, 285. I just went to McDonald's and put on a bunch of weight. Yeah, I put up to 320, but it didn't look as good as Jesse Perry's 320 does. He's really done the work to not add that fat. It's good body weight and it's strength. And you could tell it in his size and everywhere that he's kind of handling himself out there on the field. I mean, when the guy came in, I was still on the team. I had thoughts. I was like, why are we bringing this guy? He doesn't look the part. He's definitely made that change as he's come along. And I remember telling him, because he came from a similar offensive system, that I did a triple option kind of thing. And I was like, let's see how fast you can learn how to kick set, because it took me about 3 or 4 years. It seems like he's figured it out pretty fast. He must be a lot smarter than I was. So
he has made a pretty remarkable jump in about a year and a half. Now, this is where it gets a little trickier. I'm not even sure who you'd put as the first teamer right now, because it's been kind of a 1A, 1B type situation at best. I guess for now we'll go with William Satterwhite, because he's gotten more of the one reps during the times that we've been out at practice. But right there with him, Sam Pendleton and the Notre Dame transfer, I'd say there have been some questions about him, just how ready he is. He started some games at Notre Dame last year, but lost that starting job and then ended up transferring, obviously, at the end of the year. It still seems like as a redshirt sophomore, he's maybe not a finished product yet. But the fact that he gives you some flexibility, being able to play both guard and center, but the question is he going to be a starter? And as William Satterwhite, as a second-year guy, has he come far enough? This is the position that feels like the biggest question mark and the biggest concern for this offensive line as a whole, either way, no matter who wins that job.
Yeah, I mean, I think the center position is your biggest, if I had a red marker, I'd circle it. That's the one that's really got the eyes on it that you're watching for. I mean, obviously Satterwhite was the center in the spring. He didn't do a terrible job, but I mean, obviously when you're coming from a guy like Cooper Mays, that's the standard, and now you're holding everybody to that standard, and it's not always a fair representation. I think he's improved this offseason. I think both of them have to a point, but like you said, I think there's still some finished product work that needs to help them out the rest of the way. From good graces from what I've seen, snaps have been a lot better, so that's an issue that we can kind of somewhat chalk off the board a little bit. There hasn't been as many. Obviously, you're going to have a couple here or there in a practice, but just consistently wise, it's been there. So that's something that I'm impressed with. And I mean, the fact is, at the end of the day, you're going to have to go with the guy that you feel like you can trust throughout the length of a season. And Satterwhite he doesn't have that full season experience of really playing, whereas Sam, he's got some experience of, all right, I've got to play back-to-back games, something like that. So that's going to be something, who's going to be able to carry out the 12-game season and then beyond that to where we want to go. And so that's going to be the thing that you're going to have to look at. It's probably going to be a position that you might see. I wouldn't be surprised if there's some shifts throughout the season as it goes along, just because it's just so unknown right now. We really just have no idea who really could fill those shoes, because like I said, Cooper Mays left some pretty big shoes at that center position. So
you've played that position and know how this offensive line works within this system. Is that the kind of position where if you just find a guy who can snap and be solid up front, not necessarily open up holes in the run game, just getting by there, that the other guys can kind of pick up the slack for him a little bit?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, the way that our offense is set up, I mean, we can scheme ways to get that center help as far as, obviously, a lot of teams dealing with that head-up nose, where you can find ways to get a guard over there to help them out and stuff like that. And especially in our pass protection setups, I mean, we set up everything to help one another. You're always creating combos somewhere. So, I mean, they're going to have him protected. However, you are going to be better off with someone that can hold their own a little bit more. And I mean, when you get to the further on aspects of it, being able to call out the specialty calls that I've talked about before, I mean, that's one thing Cooper was great at. He could look down and then look back up, see things change, and get the call out fast enough. And that's just something that you got to get with experience and repetition. I mean, that's not something you can always replicate in a practice, so that's kind of not until you get in the game to see how well, because I mean, I wasn't even really that good at it. I'd make a call, and then half the time, whatever I called is what we're rolling with, even if it was wrong. So I mean, as long as you got a center that can get everybody on the same page, even if it's the wrong page, but they're all doing the same thing, then you're going to be better off regardless. So.
How important is that center, and we'll get to these other positions real quickly, but how important is that position in maintaining the tempo for this offensive line?
Yeah, I mean, they set the tempo for that offensive line. I mean, they're taught what the center's supposed to do is, obviously find where the ball is, track up the hash. You got to be the first one that's kind of leading the charge for everybody. And now, obviously, it's not a full-out sprint or kill yourself to get to the ball, but it's just you got to have that good initial push to get everybody to go with you, because, sometimes your tackle might be battling someone 6 yards in the backfield. You got to make sure you get him and say, all right, come on, we're going.
Right.
And that's just part of the things that you figure out as a center. Younger center, first few times I was playing, I had a bad habit of I was just concerned about myself, concerned about where I needed to be. As I got more experience at that center position, I realized that, your center is that quarterback of that offensive line. He's the leader and kind of helps carry everybody around because he's the center figuring everything out.
Yep.
And so once you kind of get that mindset that you're here to serve everybody else as the center position, then you start getting more of that, I got to start worrying about what these other guys are doing too.
We kind of need two Sham Umarov names, I feel like, because he might be the top backup at both left guard and right guard. It may be one of those situations, would you agree, where he's kind of the next guy in if a guard goes down? Is that probably fair to say, whether it's moving Moy to right guard to replace Jesse Perry and then Umarov moves in at left guard? One of those situations where if someone goes down, he's the next one up.
Yeah, I view Sham as that sixth man. Yeah. So, he's going to be able to roll in a lot. It's kind of like the position that I played in 21 and 22. Like, I was that, if someone went down, that was the next one that was going to come in.
Right.
And that's kind of, I think, how they're going to treat Sham for the most part of this season.
And to his point, I think these are the guys you're going to see the most. These 7 will probably make up Tennessee's core 7 to start the year. These other guys we're going to talk about are more down the line depth, but you do have another option at center in Max Anderson. I'm really going to put him here as kind of the third option at center. As long as Pendleton is there, I think you're probably looking at one of those guys playing center. Even Sham or someone else, Jesse Perry's gotten some work at center. You've got some other options. So Max Anderson looks like he's fighting an uphill battle to win that job, but he's another option there that could be in the mix if you needed another body. And then certainly Bennett Warren. And this is where, again, their tackle depth has taken a hit with the loss of Larry Johnson after spring practice, and David Sanders winning that job now almost by default. You kind of got younger guys who don't look like they're really ready to start, and Bennett Warren looks like the guy. He's kind of gotten work at both left tackle and right tackle, but he's gotten some work at left tackle, and so we'll put him there now. But obviously David Sanders, a guy that played left tackle in high school. If Lance Hurd went down, very possible you could flip David Sanders over there, play Bennett Warren or someone else at right tackle. But and Jesse Perry has also continued to get some tackle work, and you know this. Very interchangeable parts, as you said. Glenn Ellerby wants to get the best 5 on the field, so there's a real chance they're not going really outside of this pool of guys to find anyone to play significant minutes on the offensive line.
Yeah, I would say so. But, at the end of the day, these tackles, it's got to be interchangeable. I've seen them getting Lance some work at right just in case, the worst scenario would happen. They got to flip people around. But like we said before, Ellerby's going to put that best 5 out there, and that's why you cross-train so many people. I played all 5 positions. Did I play all 5 in a game? No, but I was ready. And, it sounds like that's what they're doing with a lot of these guys, and that's what builds most congruent depth. Because, you can, this is my second string here, but my first string guard is actually better if I move him over there and get my other guard in here. And that's some of the things that you got to think about as you go throughout a season and just game plan, scheme, figure things out. So,
and we'll see how it progresses. Tennessee getting ready for its first scrimmage on Saturday. That's where, if there's any depth chart movement on the offensive line, we'll probably see it more. And once we get into scrimmage play, another scrimmage scheduled for next week. So still a lot to be determined, but that's where we think Tennessee's offensive line is right now as they get ready for the season opener, August 30 against Syracuse. Give us a like or subscribe to this channel if you like this content. Plenty more like it throughout the Sports Source Digital Network. For Ollie Lane, I'm Ryan Callahan. We'll see you here next time on the Sports Source Digital Network.